welcome to the EST Hangout.
This is the EST Hangout, and today's guests are...
A good Monday morning to you. Welcome to the EST Hangout, presented by Sentinel Storage, live right here on Edmonton Sports Talk. Thanks for those listening live on EdmontonSportsTalk.com, on TuneIn, on iHeartRadio, those watching on YouTube, or for anyone listening to this on podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Matt Iwanyk with you here today. With me on this fine Monday, we've got Murray McCourt, we've got Reid Wilkins. How are you gentlemen doing today?
No idea why I'm here, Matthew, but thanks for having me.
To have a good time with your buddies Murray and Matt?
Well,
I hope so.
That sounds like
I'm sure I'll have a good time with Murray.
That Matt, he's a tough guy to enjoy, though.
I start first thing Monday morning with Iwanyk.
That's
5 days of being difficult.
But you're not wrong.
No, I love you, buddy.
Who's your NFL team? You know, we were just talking out there about football.
Yes, my favorite team is the Seahawks, though I wouldn't describe myself as a overly passionate fan. I enjoy watching them and following them, but when they have a season like this, it's like, okay, I watched some games. They won a few, lost a few. I've become more like this. I see. This is the problem with me, Murray. When you ask, I just get going because as you may have noticed, off mic, I'm quite quiet. But on mic, I've got you. So we got to toast the talk show. You just got to talk. I've kind of taken on my dad's philosophy because when the Oilers were in the middle of the decade of darkness, and I said to him, does this like bother you, or like do you get, are you a little mad they're this bad year after year? He said, no, not really. He said, I like watching hockey. I like following a team. There are players on the team I still enjoy watching. So when the game is over, I'm like, okay, they lost, and I move on. But he says then when a team is good, he really appreciates it. So yeah, when the Oilers were crappy, he didn't like it. I mean, he would have preferred if it was playoff runs. But I remember the 2015 Esks, like he really just enjoyed that, because he knew they were good, and he liked Riley, and you kind of sensed they were probably going to win it all. And I remember it was. I had to miss the second half of a game because there was an Oilers game, but they beat BC in overtime. And it was remember that team? They were behind most games in the second half or the fourth quarter. And my mom said after I left, it was in the fourth or it was in the third and they're behind and they're stalling a little bit. And my mom said, she said to my dad, well, do you think they're going to lose today? And he said, it's not the fourth quarter yet. So he's kind of just realistic. The team's either good or they aren't. He likes watching the sport. And that's kind of what I'm like with the Seahawks. I like watching them. I'll often watch with my mom or dad for those two. So no, I that's what people bug me about the Seahawks. I'm like, okay, I don't take it personally. Like if you hate them, That's cool. If you're happy that they lost, that's cool. You're really not going to get to me.
Well, I hate those fans though that bug people when they're LTE today is a Buffalo fan. Why would you go and chirp LTE? Your Bills lost. That would be that's ridiculous. I hate it when people do that. But
yeah, I wouldn't do that. There are some teams I dislike for sure. But a fan of the team. If they're feeling crappy about it, I texted Jay last night, just sorry, man. But he was, and he'll have, I'm sure, a lot to say on our show today. But he was basically got overmatched and outplayed in the big game. They were in gravy time.
Yeah, that was the thing I think for Jay.
Yeah, they won 4
it was a
games
game.
last
They
year.
weren't supposed to be the NFC Championship game.
Yeah,
so for him,
big.
I forgot to text him.
That's
yesterday.
a big win. But that's a nice thing to do. A text say, "Oh, sorry, man," not "Ha, your team sucks." F you.
Well, yeah, and there's sports is an escape at the end of the day.
Yeah,
and I do think it's fun to have a favorite team. I do think it's fun to have the community of being with other fans. I mean, I have a couple cousins who weren't big hockey fans, but as the Oilers have gotten better, they've become more interested, and now they're like, oh, it's cool to go to work and talk to a colleague about the game or about a player. But I think, Murray, people have to remember, you have no impact on the bearing of the game. So cheering for a successful team really doesn't make you more successful. And mocking somebody for cheering for a poor team, you have to remember the person you're mocking is not failing at anything. They just have some emotional investment
Yeah.
in a team that had a tough day.
If you're at the game, you do actually have a little bit of an impact. I stand by that one. The Seahawks are very well known for the false starts that they have caused because of that crowd. And if you are there, you actually do have a little bit of an impact on the game.
Football, maybe.
And
Yeah.
I think hockey too. I've talked about it with Belsey and like last year during the playoffs. If you're amped up as fans, you players get amped up. The home team, they can get amped up and they feel it.
Okay, did you ever
So
read
small amounts?
this book? Might be close to 20 years old now. It's called Scorecasting.
I have it. I never finished it.
So one of the
John,
chapters, L.
Wortham?
John Wortham and somebody else.
That's what it is.
One of the chapters, their research, and they did thousands of games. So don't tell me what happened in the NHL last night and say, "Oh, that's not true." They looked at thousands of games over at least the big four sports leagues and maybe more. And they said there is home field, ice, court advantage of all things with the officials. That home teams over the big picture get a few more calls.
Really?
Yeah.
And I think, and that's what I have a tough time when I hear fans go after the official though and going like "ref, you suck" chant and stuff like that. Because I also then go to human nature. Like refs are human; they're going to mess up. I'd want to be on their side. Like I think ripping on them naturally when there's that close call, human instinct might defer then to the other side. Start chanting, "Ref, you're great.
You're beautiful."
Start loving them. Start welcoming, embracing them, and maybe they'll give you a little bit more calls.
Well,
but I do remember that chapter. I've got to read that book in full. I have it. I got it.
I think it's on a bookshelf. We should just have a copy here at work, actually.
Create a station
people can just
bookshelf.
look at a
We
chapter.
could have a little
reference
station
it.
mini library.
Because they did some interesting stuff, and then I think some people refuted some of their findings, but who knows? But it's still it was still interesting, some of their approach.
L. John Wortham, he wrote for Sports Illustrated for a long time.
Yep.
When it was good and it wasn't AI. And I don't know if he's still doing it, but then he started doing stuff with 60 Minutes.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
He's doing some investigative reporting or whatever you would call those pieces for 60 Minutes.
Anyway, why did you ask me my favorite NFL team?
Because I didn't know.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to learn something new about you today.
Well, I didn't. You probably told me before, but yours is Cowboys. You
yeah.
said? So, how do you feel about their new coach?
They're
Oh.
OC. By the way, just before Marie answers that question, I'll let you think.
sorry.
This is the EST Hangout presented by Sentinel Storage, Canada's storage experts. More than 2 decades of helping Canadians through life's transitions. Right now, 75% off 12 weeks, 5x5 units. That's on offer. Will end this Friday. Check them out, sentinel.ca. We will get to Oilers discussion throughout the show. We'll talk AFC, NFC Championship game and look ahead to the Super Bowl. Brian Schottenheimer, head coach, Dallas Cowboys.
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not necessarily unhappy about him as the coach, depending on who they end up hiring as coordinators. But what I'm really unhappy about is the lack of process that they went through to get there, because the process was a complete joke. I mean, they didn't even reach out to talk to, the top end guys in this hiring cycle. I mean, they interviewed a couple of guys to get that Rooney Rule crossed off the list, and they just hired that guy. And from what I hear about him, he used to coach with the Seahawks, so maybe you have some insight. It sounds like, he's really well liked in the Cowboys locker room, and he's really well liked by the organization. It sounds like he is a guy that potentially could be a really good leader of men and whatnot. So I see potential in him being a good head coach, maybe better than he has been as a coordinator, so long as he gets really good quality coordinators in there. And it sounds like who they're hiring as their DC. Yes, please. I'll take him as our DC, Eberflus, or however you say his name, but because he's always been a really good
the old
defensive
Chicago coach.
Yeah, that was DC in Indianapolis before that. But yeah, I guess we'll see. But just the process. Jerry Jones is an absolute clown, and it's hard to like the Cowboys with that guy calling the shots. But
Right.
I'm a fan. I'm loyal and dedicated.
So did you
but
always
holy-
feel that way? Because he is over 30 years now owning the team, I believe.
I
Is it
know.
90 or 91?
It was
Or was it
late
late
80s, if I'm
still?
not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, he just like any owners like Al Davis with the Raiders. How do you like that when
Right.
when the owner's getting that involved? Like he's the owner, he's the president, he's the general manager.
Yeah.
Like
They think
Come
they
on.
could coach.
yeah,
Yeah,
you think
like-
he thinks
89, he bought it for $140 million.
Yeah.
And they
What's
were
it worth now?
yeah.
Holy.
They are the most expensive franchise in the world, according to Forbes.
more than some of the EPL teams and like Bayern Munich and those.
And the
Oh,
Yankees
interesting.
and all that. Forbes has them listed as the number one right now. I'll have to look it up. He's worth $17 billion,
Oh wow!
according to Forbes.
But he's cheap.
Well,
He's
That's
How
how
do
you get all
How
that
do you
money.
save all that money?
amen. And I'm not sure his kid is any better, right?
So the kid will take over.
Yeah, he
Right.
kind of already is starting to in ways. They're kind of co-doing it together right now. But I mean, Jerry obviously gets the final say. But I mean, I think both of those guys just always think they're smarter than everybody else.
Right.
And I mean, just the way they operate is, I don't know. That's just an impression it gives off that they just know better than everybody else, and that's that. And I mean, they didn't want to talk to Ben Johnson because Ben Johnson wanted control over the players that he was coaching. Well, Jerry Jones isn't giving that up, especially to a
Right.
rookie coach. Which I mean, that's a big ask.
That is a big ask. I don't know. I wouldn't even give that up to a
Yeah.
guy like Ben Johnson. You
Yeah.
haven't proven yourself
Yeah,
as
they
a
gave
head
him-
coach. I'm not giving you control over
Yeah,
player personnel.
Well, right, but then have a personnel person that's not yourself as the owner.
right,
Right.
Yeah, he needs.
So do you think he? This is an interesting question because you don't know the man personally. So I'm asking you to speculate somewhat. So he buys the Cowboys.
Which are now worth $10.1
They're not.
billion.
They're not good. They become very good. Still, I think pre-salary cap.
Yeah,
Though they drafted Aikman and got Irvin
Sure.
and all those guys.
Smith.
Emmitt Smith, of course. So do you think that he was too much like, oh, I did this. Like I know football. And he spent the last now 27 years operating under the premise that he knows how to assemble
Yeah.
a roster.
well, and maybe, but even right now, I mean, before this year was an anomaly. They were supposed to make the playoffs this year. They have so many great players, but they just got absolutely decimated by injuries. I mean, they got destroyed with injuries to so many of their best players as well. But 3 years in a row before this, they were a 12-win team.
True.
Didn't have playoff success.
Which is the story of the Cowboys
Yeah.
for the large part of
Right.
two and a half decades now.
So
Good regular season teams
yeah,
that somehow blow it in the playoffs, like Tony Romo dropping the
you're right.
extra
It was
point
just-
or
Oh, the short field
the
goal.
the
Des
catch,
Bryant.
the
was it the field goal?
non-catch, the
Des
catch that was a
Bryant,
non-catch.
and all that.
One of the greatest, I think it still does stuff, but you guys know The Onion, that satirical news website. One of their best headlines ever after that game was, Romo regrets eating fried chicken right before handling snap.
Boy,
I thought that was pretty funny.
that is funny.
And he almost ran it in.
Yeah. So I actually think the Cowboys potentially could be a playoff team again next year because they, I mean,
Yeah.
Dak
Well,
was runner-up
so
to
swingy
MVP
in
a
the
year
NFL,
ago. I
right?
mean, yeah.
Like-
It's,
Well, the
it's all
NFC
health, right?
East, since the Eagles went to 4 straight NFC championship games in the 2000s, since then, no NFC East champ has repeated the second next
Exactly.
year.
And
It is every single year there's a new
For
winner
regular
and stuff.
season. Were
For
the
the regular
Cowboys
season.
first last year?
Yeah.
They were, right? Okay.
So Eagles did it this year. So bet on either the Giants, no.
No.
Bet on the Cowboys or the Commanders.
But
winning
that's
the division
the
next
great thing, though. Like, okay, you laugh at the Giants. I get it. But that's what the NFL has that I think the other big four don't have,
Yeah.
is that there can be
The surprise.
those massive improvements. And the divisions are
Washington.
small. Yeah, right. And the divisions are so small, going from last to first is 3 spots. I'm not saying
Yeah.
it's easy, but maybe you were 6-11 and had some injuries and lost some close games. And then the next year you win those close games and the other teams. And as we know, there's usually a division winner with
a soft
10
division.
wins. You know, like what did Tampa Bay get to this year?
Yeah. Well,
You know,
that
so-
division's weak for sure. Yeah.
But
It like Washington, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, were a 4-win team a year
I believe
ago.
they were, yeah.
I mean, they
They were third overall pick or whatever it was.
Yeah.
When they got.
I think
Jaden
Daniels was second.
Was he
wasn't
second?
he?
Second
Yeah.
overall.
So so they were then the second worst team in the league last year, and now they were in the top 4. That speaks to what you're saying. That's unbelievable. Like that doesn't happen in the NHL. No,
What you
okay.
get in the
Yeah, it
NHL
wouldn't-
is generally more so if it happens, it's like the year anomaly that kind
Yeah.
of surprises, and then they drop back down.
Like,
the
didn't
next year or
Vegas
whatever.
miss the playoffs the year before they won the cup?
Yeah.
But they were still,
Yes.
but they were an injury-riddled team.
Yeah, injuries can
Still,
play
I
a
think
huge
fired their
part.
coach.
had 90-ish points. Yeah.
But like it's like the one year I remember Colorado surprised everyone and they won. Did they win the Presidents or did they just win the Western
I think
Conference?
was first year, so that was almost 10 years ago
Yeah.
now. But yeah.
And then the next year, like everyone had expectations, they dropped. They dropped out again because I think the
Yeah.
PDO that year was incredible and stuff like that.
New
Like, it's-
Jersey.
That's
sorry.
the thing I think you sometimes have in hockey
Yeah.
is it's a
team
you
has
might
a
see a
bad
team
year.
shoot up a little bit, but they'll drop quicker.
Well, New Jersey Devils 2 years ago were one of the top
right.
teams in regular season. Last year they missed the playoffs. This year they're awfully darn good again,
Yeah, they're
right?
good again,
So
yeah.
what happened last year is the question. But so is that's not really the same thing we're talking about with, let's say, the Washington, because they were really good. They had a bad year. Why did they have a bad year? Was it, the injuries or whatever? And that was the anomaly that they were bad, because they're a good team. They got a lot of good young pieces there.
The one thing about football too, I think it helps is the non-guaranteed contracts that you could cut people.
Sure.
There's a lot of people
Yeah,
going
for
out
sure.
there, so you could grab other people a little quicker too. And in hockey and in baseball, in basketball, if you make a mistake, you to a degree are stuck with said mistake. Whereas in football, if it's guaranteed money, you're stuck with said mistake.
Yeah.
But everything else, you could just
Well,
punt it along and get rid of it, and you can make those moves. So that's where sometimes maybe you can make that jump. And once you get a quarterback, you get
That's
a quarterback,
helpful, yeah.
and how much that changes everything. And
Yeah.
now the Commanders have a guy in
Right.
Jaden Daniels, and now look, they're winning football games. That's not a coincidence in that part right there.
Well, and you look at the NFL compared to the NHL again. Their NHL's drafting guys at 18 years
Yep.
old. NFL is drafting guys 21, 22
Mhm.
years old. And so in the NFL, you're getting your first round pick, it better be a starter, unless it's a quarterback that needs a year of mentoring from somebody.
But even then, that's rare nowadays.
But yeah, they're playing. And second round pick is probably starting. Your third round pick is probably contributing,
Right.
if not starting. And, fourth round for sure contributing, if not starting. If you're not a Connor Bedard or a Macklin Celebrini, you're not playing in the NHL in the first year. If you're drafted 4 overall or 5 overall, you're probably not playing.
Yeah.
So a good draft can significantly turn a team around in the NFL. Where, I mean, that's a
Hockey, you're waiting
draft.
for it.
You're waiting for
Yeah.
it for 3-4 years till they are that 21, 22 years old, and then they're really ready to play and contribute.
The Super Bowl everyone wanted going into for the last few months, Bills, Lions, the Super Bowl. No one wanted Chiefs, Eagles. We get Chiefs, Eagles. Do you guys want to look ahead to Super Bowl yet? Or did you first yesterday, what do you guys... Well, there's not much to really say about Commanders and Eagles. Like the Eagles were the better team.
Yeah.
Also the Commanders, though, just turned the ball over too much and it just ultimately cost them. Anytime like you thought maybe the Commanders could maybe do something, your ball's turned over. Are you guys as furious about Chiefs Bills as some others are?
Well,
you guys see that one as
What would I be furious about, Matthew? Which angle are you approaching this from?
the officiating?
Well,
Fourth down. That's the big play is the fourth
spot
down.
of the ball is the only call in that game. I mean, there's others.
I think the catch, non-interception that they ruled a catch when the ball hit the ground.
Well, but the ball didn't move when it hit the ground.
That was a catch.
That was, I think that was probably a catch and not going to be overturned on replay. I mean, there was that one face mask that wasn't a face mask because he didn't grab it. But if you put your hand up there, you're giving the ref remember the DB on the receiver.
I don't mind
if
that
you
one.
put your hand up there, you're giving the ref a chance to make a face mask.
The head
call.
moved, so it looked like
the
grabbed.
Bills got away with a clear false start on a goal line play. So I mean, stuff happens. The spot of the ball, and look, I don't buy into the Kansas City conspiracy or that the Chiefs favor them. My attitude is they're on national television a lot, so close calls get broadcast more widely than they are for other teams. I haven't read more about it today. I don't know if there's more on it. The weird thing about that play was there were 2 different spots. So and then they went to commercial, I believe. So I'm not sure why they went with the spot of the official who wasn't facing the ball. That's what appeared to happen. Now I know on replay it looked like he got the ball there. also a guy's helmet passed in front of the ball as they were looking at it, and they say we can't overturn stuff, as we know from hockey. We can't overturn stuff unless it's conclusive. So the replay part of it, I understand more than the spot of the ball, right? Like,
yeah, you defer to the call in the field.
The replay,
if it was ruled a first down, they would have kept it a first down.
Right.
Had they
So
reviewed
I'm
it.
not
Like, that
sure.
I'm fine with.
I'm not sure why they went with that spot. That's what I would like to find out more about. But no, I'm not mad about it. I'm just an observer. But I thought it was a great game. I mean, both quarterbacks played great. I just think that, and this is why I like watching the Chiefs, is because I like seeing what Andy Reid and Spagnuolo are going to come up with. And I just, I like how Andy Reid is 66, but he doesn't, like, he's not old school.
Yeah, the game
He's
hasn't
like,
passed him by,
make plays, and even the play where they needed the first down at the end to run out the clock, like squirting the back out of the backfield, a guy who hadn't touched the ball all game. He's like, go make a play. You're the guy in this situation. Like they always just, and of course the players got to go out there to execute, but they always come up with something from a strategy standpoint or a play calling standpoint that seems to be more than the other team can figure out. So I do appreciate watching that.
Even the triple reverse, it only ended up getting a 2-yard play, but
Right.
it was fun. It was fun to watch.
I'll go because the flip side to everything you're saying there is, like, we can go into the spot, we can go into the officiating and all that. But the other thing you could also look at is the Bills. They went for a lot of fourth downs in that game, and they were struggling on it, but they kept doing the exact same play over and over and over. And clearly the Chiefs D-line had a little bit more power over the Bills O-line, and it was tough inches that the Bills were fighting for every time, and the Chiefs were able to stop them multiple times. Why, if you're Sean McDermott and Joe Brady, aren't you mixing it up? Why aren't you trying something different? Why aren't you moving things around? You've got a great quarterback who might be the MVP this year. We will find out in a couple of weeks. Put the ball maybe more in his hand and let him do something else with it. That's where I also go. If I was a Bills fan, I'd be frustrated. Is that, like, you talking about the face mask, you put in the chance, you put in the ref's ability to throw a flag. You put that game on the refs' hands too a little bit there, because they got to mark the spot in the NFL. We're still doing it that way and stuff. Why aren't you calling something a little more different when clearly you've been struggling with that? It's not even the tush push, because there wasn't even any pushing from behind generally. That QB sneak that they kept trying, it wasn't working.
Yeah.
So why keep going back to this? Whereas Andy Reid and them, like, even if they went for a couple fourth downs or something like that, different options. They would, or late in the game, they would just roll Patrick Mahomes out and he'd just drop it or he'd run with it. Doing creative things, doing different things, and we never got that from the Buffalo Bills. I'd be upset a little bit with my coaching staff, with Bills fans.
That's what I was going to say. My analogy of that game is absolutely that the Buffalo got out coached, and Josh Allen's a great quarterback. Maybe Mahomes, he's not the best in the league. Mahomes is a better quarterback than him, I think. But they were relying on him too much, and it was too predictable. They didn't do enough variety in their plays and whatnot to have Kansas City, needing to make some adjustments. And that number 4, I don't even know his name, that was a running back for Buffalo.
Cook?
James Cook, I think that's his name, yeah.
He didn't run the ball at all in the last drive for them.
When he was running the ball,
the ball
very well before that, and then he went away from him. That didn't make any sense to me. But
that's where it's pressure too, even. For coaching staff, and look, the Ravens stopped running last week with Derrick Henry. And John Harbaugh's a longtime coach, one of the better coaches we've ever seen in the game. But for some reason, they got away from it. And then this week, I think maybe it's the pressure of the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, you're looking at the Chiefs, and it's like, how do we beat this? We got to do everything. And you overthink it. And you get away from just the simple stuff. This is working. Let's just keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, they had that one drive that until they were right down at the goal line, they handed the ball off like, what it was, eight plays in a row.
I think that first drive of the third quarter, they ran every play.
And that Cook was just killing it in that series, and then they went away from it and kept trying to have Josh Allen use his legs. And man, like, a quarterback sneak in the NFL is not.
It's not the same as its quarterback sneak in the Canadian football league.
No, absolutely not. So
and I guess that's the thing. And that's a really good point where, like we were saying, well, don't give the refs the chance to make a penalty. on that quarterback sneak, don't give the other team a chance to make it close. So
Well, fair, yeah.
yes, we can argue the spot of the ball, but it's not as if he was clearly half a yard past and they moved it back. He was still sort of in a bit of a shady area, and that's a good point. It wasn't, they weren't dominating the line of scrimmage with the quarterback sneak. So at some point on 4th and inches, do you have to do something else, or roll Allen out like they were doing with Mahomes, and then he has a few options as to where he's going to go. But I can understand why that play though is going to be criticized and questioned about the spot of the ball for sure. But yeah, I'm with you on that funny catch though, like a weird play, because I don't even know if that's who he was throwing to, because there was another Kansas City guy right there.
Yeah.
And like for a split second, it looked like the Buffalo guy had it.
Yeah.
And got it taken away. But then when it hit the ground, it didn't move.
Right.
Then as they roll onto their back, the ref looks and is like, oh, the KC guy has it, or it's a tie. So it's
tie goes to the runner.
And also on that play.
And I'm fine with that. I don't think that he had control of Bill's receiver at all before it hits that ground.
No, also Buffalo had a holding penalty on that play. So
Yes.
it would have been
Right.
it would have been a first down
At the 20
further back,
line,
but
yeah.
Kansas City would have maintained the ball.
Yes.
Retained the ball.
I don't see an interception on that play. To me, just straight up, I don't know how I'd rule that an interception, because I do believe the ball hit the ground then, and where I go, it's okay, if it hit the ground, then it's not an interception. But I also, if it doesn't move, I don't think the Bills receiver has possession before that, and it hits the ground. But then its tie goes to the receiver.
Yeah.
Right.
Same, tie goes to the runner in baseball. Tie will always go to the receiver. It's just how it is. That's not a Chiefs favoritism. That's just what we see in football. If it's close and it's tight and it's a 50-50, they're going to give it to the receiver. And when it hits the ground, I didn't like that personally. But you're right. Yeah, great point with the holding. That it was still the Chiefs' ball.
Yeah.
Yes.
And who knows what they would have finished there, and the way they were moving the ball. Like, first time all season, they hit 30 points. Then the most
That's
important
crazy.
game.
Yeah.
So another quarterback sneak that they did with Josh Allen was, they got so lucky on, because it was a brain dead call, was when Josh Allen jumped over the top with the ball hanging out. He fumbled it and just got lucky to get it back. Yes, you make that call on the goal line, because as soon as the
That was Mr.
plane
Tom
of the
Brady.
ball
He used to always do that.
crosses the goal line, it's a touchdown. Doesn't matter what happened. But if you're throwing the ball out there in the middle of the field, I mean, you have no control over that ball. It's going to get smacked out of your hands.
And that's the one time they did something different, is they went with that one. But it worked in a sense.
Oh,
It
But
worked.
Murray's
got
right, though. That
lucky.
was a silly thing to do something
Yes,
different.
in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got so lucky in that, because, I mean, if KC would have picked up that fumble, well,
Yeah.
Now the AFC's all back to the drawing board, going, we could beat the Chiefs again.
Yeah.
Got to do it to figure it out next year. And it's going to be fascinating to see who can maybe eventually do it, because at some point it will happen. But Patrick Mahomes, still in his career, he's been a starter, I believe. He has never not been to the AFC Championship game. And that was
that's
back in his-
incredible.
It is.
Yeah,
That
that's
is
incredible.
Right? Like you said before the show, and you don't understand the Chiefs hate and stuff. For me, like I get tired at times of seeing the same team over and over and over. But I also feel like I don't like Philly. So I'm okay with cheering a little bit for history here. We've never seen the 3 straight Super Bowls in the Super Bowl era. Look, as good as the Bills are, as good as the Ravens have been, we're witnessing. We went right from the Patriots dynasty right to maybe a better team, maybe to a degree a better dynasty in the end. We'll see how this all plays out. And that's kind of, to me, as somebody who just wants to sit there with the history part of this, that's something I'm actually excited about. Like, Patrick Mahomes is on pace now to potentially now have the greatest quarterback title. He could, if he keeps going on the pace, he's going to be Tom Brady.
Yeah. Isn't he already? If they win
He's ahead pace
right
for
there.
his career.
Yeah.
In terms of Super Bowls and all that, he'd be ahead of Tom Brady at this point in Tom Brady's career.
Because Brady played in 10, right? Went 7-3, I believe.
I believe you're correct. And I believe when Brady won his 4th or whatever it was, because when Mahomes won his 3rd.
The Patriots had a gap, right? Because
Yes.
didn't they go 8 or 9 years without being in the Super Bowl after 2004?
Well, they lost. So they won 3 and 4, I believe it was.
The undefeated
and then they
year,
went to, and they lost to the Giants, I believe, in 8 and 12.
But I think
it was.
Win one in between. Anyway.
And then they won and they beat the Seahawks. And then they beat the Falcons. and they beat the Rams.
Right.
So it was spread out. And then Tom went to Tampa and won with them. But so they got back a couple of times in between. They just never got it done because, they also lost to the Eagles in there. I forgot later on.
That was when was that? I know I'm looking it up. Super Bowl, as they call it on Wikipedia, Super Bowl championship games, as opposed to the Super Bowl runner-up games. So they won. So I'll go by the year the game was played. So it was actually for the previous season, right? So they won in
2001,
01, 03, and 04.
Yeah.
And then they lost in 08.
And then 12?
And then they weren't back in it until 15.
Oh, wow.
Who did they lose to in 15?
Nobody. That's the year they beat Seattle. Then 17, they beat the Falcons.
You missed one. They lost to the Giants twice.
Oh, pardon me. They lost to the Giants in 12.
Oh.
I did miss one. So, yeah, they were always kind of
it was a Tom Coughlin, Eli Manning just somehow had them. Well, it's not somehow had them. They had, I don't want to take anything away from the Giants, so sorry, Strutty. But they had that great catch from
Tyree Davis and Mario Manningham.
And then Mario Manningham in the next Super Bowl. David Tyree Manningham had 2 amazing catches that ultimately took him out. But at the same time, if Marshawn Lynch gets the football, they might lose a different one at that point. But now if the pace that Patrick Mahomes and to a degree Andy Reid are on, they're now trending ahead of the Patriots if they go win this Super Bowl. Now, if they go lose and the Eagles go win this, then they're back into the same kind of spot. But that's where I'm also kind of like with the Chiefs, we're watching true greatness. And again, who knows if we'll see that next quarterback or how long it'll be once Patrick Mahomes is done and Andy Reid are done. Andy Reid might be the greatest coach ever.
Well,
I think he already is.
You also have to give some huge credit to the Kansas City front office because it doesn't look like there's an end in sight to their dominance, and they don't have salary cap issues. They're able to keep the troops all together, and guys want to stay there and keep doing it over and over again. So how they're able to manage their salary cap and when they got rid of Tyreek Hill, I mean they drafted going to forget his name right now, but that rookie receiver this year at the end of the first round, and he had a pretty darn good rookie year for him and stuff. So they can just plug and play guys into their system and still manage to keep most of the guys together, and just it's impressive to see, no question.
The other thing that happens, and I think Bruce Arthur pointed this out on Twitter yesterday. The one thing you see in the difference from Ravens and Bills, I'll throw into this, to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, as well as Tom Brady's Patriots, was Tom Brady he didn't have a great all-star cast of receivers his entire career. You go back to those first 3 Super Bowls, it wasn't a star-studded cast of receivers. Yeah, got Randy Moss later. They made Wes Welker, the New England Patriots. He was nothing in Miami, went there, they made him and stuff. But for the most part, his receivers would make the plays when they needed one, or his running back. They'd make plays when they needed one. Patrick Mahomes, his receivers and his running backs, they make plays when they need them. The Bills and the Ravens, their players aren't making the plays when they need them. Mark Andrews dropping the ball yesterday, or last week. Kincaid dropping that 4th down play. It's a very difficult play,
but makeable play.
Absolutely. Right. It's a lame duck. It's not there. But the Chiefs didn't exactly zero in and make it knock it down or anything. He could have. Chiefs players have been making those plays for Patrick Mahomes. Patriots players were making those plays for Tom Brady's. Bills players aren't making those plays for Josh Allen. Ravens players had been making those plays for Lamar Jackson. And there's also the difference between championship and not. Is those extra, just those small little plays. And that's not on the officiating. That's just outright good football execution. And the Bills have the swagger, or the Chiefs have the swagger and stuff. And now they're on to Super Bowl 59 or whatever.
Sorry, I only know the Roman numerals, Matthew.
What are the Roman numerals for this?
I don't know that.
Oh, well, I think I want to say Broncos won 50. I don't know how long ago Broncos
was. Super Bowl L, right?
No. They did Super Bowl 50. They went away from
they
Roman
didn't
numerals
use the Roman numerals
because
just
they didn't want
50.
the L. Loser and all that.
This is Super Bowl LVIII.
8.
That's 58.
Yeah. Brendan, do you know how to do Roman numerals? Some days, okay. It's very easy once you figure it out.
But to your beginning point of this whole discussion about, I mean, the Super Bowl, Philadelphia and
Boring.
Kansas City.
For the casual, it's boring.
So I got to say what I said to you guys before. And my 6-year-old son this morning, just unprompted for this, just says, "Daddy, Philadelphia, barf. Kansas City, barf. I hope the Super Bowl 0-0 so neither of them win." My 6-year-old kid comes up with that because it is not the game anyone wants to see unless you're a fan of one of those teams, because it's just boring. Detroit and Buffalo would have been fun and exciting and new and would have had people's attention. This isn't going to have
By the way,
a lot
okay,
of
first
people's
LIX
attention.
is the Super Bowl this year.
First of all,
so 59.
that's awesome. Oh, I was looking at last year. First of all, that's awesome that your son knows that much about football. That he can comment on that at that age. I get maybe, and I used to kind of think like this. Maybe I've just moved away from it. I get the argument about variety. You know, like, oh, it's okay. I've seen this guy. I want to see somebody else ascend. I want to see another guy in this high pressure situation. But I don't think personally, I don't see this as a boring matchup. I mean, Barkley is an amazing running back.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
his birthday on Super Bowl Sunday.
Hurts is a mobile quarterback that can make plays. You got the Chiefs with a quarterback that can play a system and improvise, with a bunch of speedy guys that, again, the coach knows how to call plays to get them the ball. So, like, I don't know. I get it. You know, the Lions, very exciting. And certainly, I would have loved to see the Lions from that standpoint of a fresh opponent of a team that was, well, Oiler-esque, if we want to reference what happened here, and then ascended, you know, through good management and good coaching and players buying in. But I don't know. I think this could be a very, very exciting game. I mean, it'll be teams looking to score points.
Yeah, it should be high scoring.
It's the narrative of both the teams. That's what, like, everything you're saying about the way they play, 100% right. The Eagles, that, like, beyond Saquon Barkley, I don't think they're as an exciting style. That people are like the two previous playoff games we saw of the Eagles were very bad football. You know, it wasn't great. So, and it's also like, for me, I know this is one's for me. I hate Philly. I want the Chiefs to beat Philly. I'm just against that city for their sports teams for whatever reason.
Right.
I
understand that. But
and then the variety to this, like, I was fine with the Chiefs if they were going to go. I would have loved seeing the Commanders, you know, when was the last time they were in 93 was, or something like that. I would have loved to have seen the Packers get back there, or like so many of the other different teams. And it was, of all the teams, the Eagles. We saw this Super Bowl 2 years ago. It was a really good Super Bowl game. The Eagles almost beat them. It was, you know, I think Patrick Mahomes got a little banged up, and it was worrisome for the Chiefs there, and they found a way to get it done. But it's the Eagles part to me that I just go, I don't care. I don't, and like the Chiefs now, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm kind of cheering for you because I just hate Philly, but I really just don't care overall. I just don't care overall.
Well,
maybe it's also like the halftime show to me. I'm not excited about Kendrick Lamar. I'm not saying he shouldn't do it.
I'm not a big deal about that.
I think people love him, but I don't care about Kendrick Lamar.
That's the halftime show?
Yeah, it's supposed to drop a diss track against Drake. You're cheering it too, even though they have the lawsuit against each other right now. Or Drake's dropped a lawsuit against him. He's dropping a diss track against Drake during the halftime show. Boom.
Yeah.
Reid's excited about that one.
Okay. I'll have to look into that.
Jasmine can tell you all about it Wednesday.
I don't know. I understand, like, it's fun to debate who's in it. Do you like this matchup? Who do you hate more if you don't have a favorite team? But I'm also like, it's the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I care. I'm going to watch. The teams have earned it. Like, I don't care if
I'm not going to not watch.
I don't care if it's like Jaguars, Chargers. Well, they were in the same conference.
Although that would be exciting because it's new teams.
Fair.
Well, yeah, and then they'd have good players, so it would be exciting to watch them.
It's one, though. It's like, for this one, Sabe at Sentry, which I should get to right away here, a comment on that. I got a liner to read. That's what they call it in the biz, a liner. I have no problem having good conversation with people while following the game. That, like, the game's not going to be primary for me as much. Whereas in other Super Bowls, the game would be like, okay, like.
Oh, really? Oh, it's always primary to me.
How many Super Bowls? How many
Super Bowls do you get to watch a year? One.
Yeah.
Might as well watch it. If you're a sports fan.
Well, I am, but I'm gonna watch it. But it's like the conversation, like especially if you're at Century Casino. Everyone that's been to Century, you know, that's
betting
wall
on
of
the
TVs.
horse racing.
I got the
Yeah.
ponies, but like it's all on the TV, so it's easy to watch and follow along, and you got the sound. But I have no problem having the conversation and, you know, keeping my conversation going and watching the play, as opposed to like watching the play, maybe commenting about that, and then continue a conversation or something like that. This game is now going to be secondary, and I got to get on the ponies. If Del Mar is racing, I am all over the Del Mar, and if I see any grays.
I bet you all
I'm
the
all
tracks go dark during the Super Bowl.
That's my fear.
Ooh.
You have no
Have you
idea.
checked? Why haven't you checked already?
Because I don't want to have my heart broken this soon.
No.
By the way, you could join us at Century Casino, Fort Road. Sorry, Maria, I just want to get to this. Under $10 food and drink menu at Century Casino for the Super Bowl. We got prizes every quarter. Well, Century does. Elks home opener tickets, jerseys, win your tab. Enter to win your share of $1,000 in prizing. Reservations, not just recommended. You're going to need them. I'm going to tell you that. They'll get fully reserved up. edm.centurysports@cnty.com or message us and we will get you that email address. The under $10 menu includes smoked brisket cheesecakes, cheese steak, surf and turf, pound of wings, chili cheese hot dog with choice of sides, garlic dry ribs, and then drinks. They got Bud Light 23 ounce for $8. Team feature cocktails, I believe, to 2 ounce, $9. The Alley Cat 6 o'clock lager in can. You can get those for $8, or a bucket of 4 is $29. Enjoy. Join us for Century Casino for the Super Bowl. Sorry, Mary.
So I was going to say Del Mar. I lived like one exit down from the Del Mar racetrack. And so I went there a lot when I went to college in San Diego.
I love Del Mar.
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
Beautiful television production. It's very appealing to the eyes, and I've had a lot of success at Del Mar throughout the Edmonton Elks season. So I'm very excited to get. Hopefully, Del Mar is back running, and they're running on Super Bowl Sunday. But if not, maybe there's a race in Australia or something.
Well,
There's got to be something somewhere in the world that I could. The entire horsing world cannot go dark. Otherwise, then I'm really going to be mad.
And then you'd have to
What kind of
watch
Super
the game.
Bowl is this?
Yeah.
Well, last year, actually, though, and thanks to Savage for helping get this done, because it's always Waste Management on Super Bowl weekend. And Nick Taylor got to a playoff, and the game started, or was about to start.
That's true, yeah.
And thank you again to Savage for getting them to change it at Century. We got a TV on Nick Taylor and the WM Open, so we got to watch the end of Nick Taylor and winning that championship.
That was fun.
So I'm excited about that too. I love the Waste Management. Although I'm intrigued this year how the Waste Management goes, because last year they had the rain, so there's delays and it got messy and it was really bad for the alcoholism and I don't even know if I want to call it a party anymore. I want to see how do they rein this in? How much do they rein it in? Because they have to do something about it, and we'll see how much. And that's the fear I have, is that maybe everything that was built so organically of that being such a party is now going away. Because before there was a party during a golf tournament. That's what it turned into. When initially it was just there was a good time happening, because of the golf.
Yeah.
Then it turned into
Then
only
they
about
built
the
it
partying.
up. Yeah.
So explain to me this. The PGA Tour this week moved to Wednesday to Saturday to avoid competing with the semifinal games in the NFL.
They've done this for a couple of years, apparently.
But they
have they?
don't. They play the Waste Management on Sunday, on Super Bowl Sunday.
Probably because there's no earlier game, so they can finish by 6:30 Eastern.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I would guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is kind of funny how they still.
Yeah, and I don't know
Have
when the Farmers Insurance Open changed.
I'm not
to
sure.
do
I
the
don't
Wednesday
remember
to
that.
It's
Saturday?
pretty recent. But I remember, I think a year Jason Day won in a playoff. That was a Sunday, because I remember watching the playoff on the Monday because they had a darkness. And so I don't know when they decided to change to the later, 2022, to avoid with viewership clash.
Oh, okay.
Well,
I'm trying to remember if football was always at 1 and 4:30 and stuff. So yeah, so they've changed that one. But yeah, I think Reid would probably be right, is that Super Bowl generally doesn't start till about 4:30 or something.
so that coincides with when it ends, and you got like however many fans at the Waste Management all trying to get the hell out of there and get to a
I don't
TV to
know.
watch the Super Bowl. I mean,
Maybe they have a Super Bowl party there, or maybe they're too inebriated to care
Well,
about what's happening in the Super
yeah,
Bowl. by that
they
point.
wake up tomorrow and find out, the Super Bowl. Who
Oh, I
won?
missed the Super
Can't
Bowl.
remember. Yeah, had too much fun at the
Well,
Waste Management.
When and then would have it been 2 years ago? I think 2 years ago they had that perfect storm. Or was it a little bit more? Yeah, I think 2 years ago, because it's Super Bowl and Waste Management. in Glendale or in Phoenix.
Oh, both in Phoenix. Okay.
Because the event's in Scottsdale, but Metro Phoenix,
Same
and
general
all of
area.
that.
Yeah.
And they had Super Bowl that weekend. So like I remember I was in Phoenix like 2 weeks prior to it. I was talking to I think an Uber driver, and he was like, they expecting like some of the bars had like $10,000 like to get in.
What?
Like some of the high ones and
Jeez.
stuff. Like it was like prices were just shooting up and everything was just incredible. Like for the economy, I'm sure they're like, I love those economy studies after, like you always have to raise, look at them with a little bit of eyebrow raise. Like, hey, Grey Cup comes here and like $12 million was pumped into the economy. And there's always a skew to that.
Right.
But I would have loved to seen what that economy was pumped into Arizona for that 2 week span or whatever it was between the Super Bowl and WM Open a few years back.
What do you think the Uber ride would have been to get from Waste Management to the Super Bowl if you had tickets for both?
Yeah, no kidding.
The surge
that
would have
Uber
been
ride
ridiculous.
Would have been
Yeah.
ridiculous, yeah.
I would like to go to a PGA event still. I've done the
never
Seniors
been?
Open. I've done Seniors Open Champions in Calgary. I've never gone to a PGA, and I do want to go because they're a fun time.
Yeah.
Enjoyable to me, at least.
Would you be a guy that would want to follow your favorite player or two, or would you want to get to a spot and just sit there and watch them, like, whether it's 18th hole or whatever hole it is, that you just sit there for the day and watch them, hit into the green and putt on that green?
So because my brother and two buddies, they perfected it kind of for the Champions Tour in Calgary, and I don't mind. So I'd want to go for like 2-3 days, because one day I would follow. I would walk around trying to follow someone. And then like in that one, we'd go 18 hole for the final day. We got our seats around the green. It's the par 5 where they're trying to go for many years.
In two.
In
18, yeah.
And 18, like for the final round. So I'd want to do one day where I'd sit somewhere, try to get that chair and sit there all day. But then I'd want to spend another day wandering around and
Seeing the course and seeing.
And I'd probably want to do 3, because one would be probably there's a golfer or two I'd want to follow fully. And then there'd probably be a day I just want to walk around and go watch here and then go over here and watch over here. And it was cool because even some, like, if there's like no one there, you could have a nice chat with the golfers. They're waiting to hit the ball. Some of them are just like, they have nothing to do. We got on this one chat from California. We're talking about the weather and all sorts of things. It was a lovely chat. And then he hit his ball. And, hey, have a good one. Oh, I see you guys. And just walks away.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
Some of the, in the PGA Tour, though, especially if you're trying to follow, one of the better players, if Tiger was playing or whatever, it's tough to follow him because everyone's trying to do that, and you miss so much and you can't see a lot. But
I guess you'd want to follow on Thursday, Friday, one of those days.
when it's less people, for sure.
Well, and there's more big golfers around, so everyone's trying to pick theirs. As opposed to like if you're on a Sunday or something, you're trying to follow the
The
final
leaders,
group or something.
good luck. Yeah.
That's going to be tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of people. Like, I still remember what was it, when Tiger won his last Masters, and you just saw that crowd of people in behind him. That view was just spectacular to me. Of just crazy. I mean, what a
They
moment
usually
that
don't
was.
let people on the 18th fairway there, do they?
Well, not at that stage. It was over, right? The leaders were Tiger was hitting his.
But even
approach
at the
shot, so
end, they
feeling-
usually don't let people surround the green that way.
Yeah.
If I'm remembering correctly, that was, and that remember they moved that round earlier in the morning, and played threesomes because there was a storm coming in the afternoon.
Right,
so it was like it was finishing quite a bit earlier than usual.
It was when Phil won. What was one of his last majors he won? Was it the U.S. Open? And
He's
he had to walk.
He's never won a U.S. Open.
Correct. Thank you. Then PGA Championship, and like the crowd, like he had to walk through the crowd because the security was awful, and they like went around it. I remember that one. I was like, ooh, that's the one thing surprising about golf is that like it's not a lot of sports you're that close to the athletes, which is wild. NBA, like courtside, like you're right there. Somebody could just go run. PGA, you're right there. There's no one stopping you from doing something stupid, largely, which is nice that no one has done anything to screw it up. But somebody's playing the machine.
That's fine.
And that's track and field. Well, Murray
You
was
can tell
asking
that's
how many
probably,
he
it's probably
was.
Jay or Trev, maybe.
That's the track and field game being played.
Yeah, you can tell by the hitting of the buttons.
What are they trying to do?
So the faster you do, you alternate the buttons, the faster you run.
Oh boy!
So most people poke like this, though I do this.
Like you're typing.
Yeah, yeah, sort of. So that's why I'm good.
It's not.
So
good.
they need to practice to try to.
He's the best.
To try
at
to
track
catch
and
up to you.
field.
Yeah, it's one of the few things in life I'm actually good at, and it's something nobody cares about.
Playing track and
Like
field
40-year-old,
on a video game.
42-year-old track and field game.
Well, at least you're good at something.
True. At least I have one skill.
Yeah,
at least
that's
I have
good.
one skill.
This is the EST Hangout presented by Sentinel Storage. Portions of this hour. It is brought to you by the Hive Product Marketing, official merch partner of EST promotional products that bring the buzz. Check them out. thehiveproductmarketing.com. Reid Wilkins, McCourt, Iwanyk with you here on Edmonton Sports Talk. No one's going to do an early Super Bowl pick, are we? No one. We're all good.
Well,
Unless you'd like
I can. People
2
will
weeks
know
away.
who I'm going to pick because I picked the Chiefs to win before the season.
Okay.
And I don't like. I try not to be one of those media people that throw out multiple picks along the way. So then I can say, "Oh, see, remember on October 27th, I said the Lions look good." And then if they would have won, but
then in December 6th, I said the Lions weren't good.
I said the Chiefs look good, and so out of maybe it's foolishness, but out of stubbornness, I will be picking the Chiefs. So I'm happy revealing that. But Jay and I have been picking winning teams and scores on our shows. Nobody's nailed the score. I think a couple times we actually nailed. We said this team would win by 3, and they won by 3. So. I'll pick the Chiefs, but we don't have to do it till next Friday now, right? When we'll actually
2 weeks
bigger
to
picks.
prep.
But I'm just saying that not to force you guys to pick, but just because if I pick a team to win the championship and then they're in the playoffs, I'll generally pick
You gotta
them to
stick
win
with
their
it.
games or
Yeah.
series, just
Why
so I
wouldn't
can
you?
say, hey, now, I guess I could have caveats to that if they were a clear underdog or whatever. But if they're up near the top, then I'll continue picking them. So
I
both
think the other
Jay
thing
and
with
I,
injuries would be a big one for me.
Sure.
Yeah.
If they're-
If you
Both-
picked the team going there, but like Mahomes got hurt this weekend, then I could see you're like, I picked them, but you want to know Mahomes is now out.
Right.
Yeah.
That changed everything.
For sure.
but both Jay and I picked a Lions Chiefs Super Bowl. Unknown, like we didn't. This was the first week we were doing our show,
It was day 2,
and we didn't.
I believe.
And we didn't tell each other who we were going to pick before the
both.
season. So we picked the 14 playoff teams, and who was going to beat who in the Super Bowl. And he took Lions over Chiefs, and I took Chiefs over Lions.
Well, I think the Chiefs are going to win. I mean, they're battle tested. Like, when a lot of people are talking, like, are the Chiefs really good this year because they were barely winning games this year? They were winning games. They know how to win, and they know how to win at this time of year, especially. They've proven that as well. Like,
They know how to do just enough to win.
Yep.
They're not trying to do more than that
Yeah.
this year. They're trying to just do enough to win.
Yeah, I have a tough time seeing them losing.
So I got 2 before we get to Oilers discussion and hockey. Jim Johnson. We always used a ruler on the track game. And then Redbeard, you need to try the old school comb trick. I showed Dusty last week.
The cone trick?
Comb. Like a comb
Oh, okay.
for your hair.
Comb, sorry.
And then Jim says comb, ruler, same thing, I would guess. So I think maybe, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, something like this. I've heard people mention a ruler to me.
That sounds like performance
I'd sooner,
enhancing.
I
drugs
just
to me,
want to.
basically.
I just want to use my body.
Yeah. That seems like
Well-
PED use right there.
That sounds like cheating to me
That's-
if you're using other objects.
That's what I'm saying. Like that's
Yeah, it's a great game though, and the graphics are like 1980s, but still, like they must have been so proud when they made that game.
oh, I'm
You
sure.
know, to be able to crank it out because
With the maths too behind it, like the angles and all that.
yeah, like to get and
That's actually
figure
pretty-
out ways to use the
Yes.
buttons and even having lanes. Though I know it doesn't look like a real lane, but it's still pretty good. One of my
Got
cousins.
tape measuring.
Yeah, the googly-eyed person measuring in the.
In the
Long
sand
jump.
and all that.
But it's interesting. Like one of my cousins went into computer programming, not games, but he knows all this back end computer stuff. And I remember a few years ago we were just talking about video games, and he goes, I feel bad for the people who were designing video games in the 70s and 80s, especially because it's not like they didn't think of making Uncharted or Final Fantasy, but you couldn't physically have the storage on a computer to program. Like they had to use limited storage, to make. Of course they could. It's not like, well, I'm just going to make Pong. I can't think of anything else. Like I'm sure that whoever made Pong would have loved to make what's a popular game now. I don't know, The Witcher. Like are those the big
Fortnite?
Fortnite or
Call of Duty,
the Spider-Man games that have come out. Like, I'm sure they envisioned that. There was no way to program it at that time.
I remember doing PowerPoints for elementary or junior high, and it was floppy disk. And you try to save it on the floppy disk, and like you don't have space for it, and then you have to find what you want to delete and how to try to like without ruining your PowerPoint, but slowly make it worse and worse and worse just to get fitted on the damn floppy disk. That's a good point, though.
So is there an event in this track and field that you're extra dominant at?
Yeah, long jump.
The long jump.
Long jump is my best one. Yeah.
Because the 100 meter, you guys are better than Usain Bolt.
Well, Jay has the record in 100 meters. He's running 9:24. And my PB is 9:32.
It was 9:58 or something like that.
The
Bolt?
real record, I think, is 9:59 or 9:58. Yeah. But I found a website. There's not a lot on it, but it's just a little bit about each event. Because Gager and I couldn't figure out how to do the high jump. So finally I said, I'm just going to look it up because we want to figure it out. And then we realized there's another button hit that we didn't realize you had to do once your guy's in the air. But on long jump, I think I read that the maximum possible jump is 9.68 or 9.70. And I've done a 9. Have I done a 9.56 or something like that? Or a 9.4? So I'm within about 20, 25 centimeters of allegedly the furthest possible jump that you're able to do it all in the game.
So what was your
But
reaction?
I don't do that every time.
What's your reaction going to be if you actually hit that number, the longest possible number? Like
this reaction, you see his face right now.
Yeah, I would be like, I got it.
That's it.
Yeah, and I'd make sure somebody saw it.
Yeah.
And then we change it on the board, and then my life would go on.
I have been working on getting the technology to stream our arcade machine or the Tecmo machine on Twitch or something like that for our Tecmo leagues. But you could then, I guess, stream your track and fields.
Yeah. Pretty exciting.
It's exciting times here at EST. As we're focusing on our programming that airs 24/7 on our audio stream.
All the programming's dialed in.
The arcade machine to see if we can get that fully going so people can watch us do it. I got us get the Tecmo League going.
It's cool people remember the game, though, and are giving
the
tips
track
about
and field.
It.
Yeah, we Zach found it at Ed's, West Ed.
Oh, yeah, there's one that's just... And then there was a game, I might have even had it for my Atari 2600 in high school, that came with a little console that had the flicky buttons. Oh, yeah? And it was actually decathlon. And I think you could do all 10. And here's the thing about this one, Murray. You don't just do all 6 events. You have to qualify. So that's the thing. Sometimes you're doing really well, and then if you bungle up one event or it's just the standard gets harder, you're done. It's not like, your score is only this, keep going. It's like, no, you're out. So imagine like if the decathlon, it was like, hey, everybody has to run a sub 11. And there's always those few guys in the decathlon that aren't that fast. They would just be out. It's like, well, but I'm the best pole vaulter in the world. Yeah, well, you didn't make it to pole vault. Too bad.
Oh my! What a place this is to work, you guys. You just yak on the radio or
hey, you got a golf sim.
Well, I guess I don't work very hard at this time of year either, but. Yes, I go to the golf sim. I'm allowed to hit irons and now up to hybrids now. So my shoulders
because you were
better.
injured, right?
Yeah.
How's that going?
Good. I couldn't do one single push-up for about 6-7 months. I do 150 a day now. So I think I'm close to better.
Yeah,
you're in very good shape.
I am close to better, but
I admire your commitment to your fitness.
Oh, appreciate that. Yeah,
1 or 2 workouts today.
Well, just
how many are you in?
Kind of 2 because I had a break. I did lifted and then took a break to help get my wife and kid off to work and school, and then I went and did some cardio.
Oh, nice.
2 workouts before we did the hangout today. No. What'd you do today?
You got up and I came here.
I did the exact same thing. So thanks, Murray. Yeah. He did a workout for each of us.
Well, now I got to do one for me now. What the heck?
It is Oiler game day. Oilers, Kraken, 7:30 tonight, which means GCLD's Oilstream pregame show, 6:30. Tommy and Hernan will get you set for that game as the captain is back in the lineup. We're closing in on the break for the Four Nations, but the Oilers back in action tonight.
When is the break for Four Nations?
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Getting closer and closer. No, Petrangelo He's going to miss
Yeah, when are they
due
gonna
to an
announce who's
ailment,
replacing
but
him?
he played yesterday and he led the Golden Knights in ice time.
So he's the first player to pull out?
Yes. I think like in this type of fashion.
What goaltender Markstrom?
Oh, Mark, he's hurt, right?
Yeah.
Not hurt. I think I saw Friedman today say, or was it Dreger? Doughty's coming back, and he's coming back soon, and they want to see how quickly he gets his legs under him.
So they're
Because
not
they
gonna-
might try to go to Drew Doughty. But I'll be
That'd be a
fascinated to
good
see
pick.
if there are any more players that try to do the Alex Pietrangelo. Hey, I got an ailment. I don't want to play. I want to rest. I got playoffs coming up here.
Right.
Because this isn't just some event, and we could sit here as fans and media and stuff and say this isn't important. This doesn't mean anything. But in the end, this is an NHLPA initiative. They have created this. They are trying to make this something to make money.
Right.
And if the one half that created this in the PA and the players start going, I don't want to play in this, that's going to hurt the product of this, obviously, and it's going to hurt the money potentially in some way, shape, or form. I know ticket sales already aren't going well fully for this. So I'll be fascinated to see what other players might try to go. I'm a little banged up. I'm going to hold off.
That game's getting intense out there.
Geez, yeah, we need a profanity filter on the mics.
Yeah.
I don't know if that went on air or not.
And an F-bomb jar. You got to put a loony in every time you swear
that's
playing
right.
the games. Well, I don't know. I mean, that's and good on Pietrangelo for making that decision, prioritizing his team and whatnot. And that is interesting that he led their team in ice time yesterday and whatnot. But that is what's most important. And when you see how many players Vegas had on the team and, a couple other teams that have a large contingent going there, that very much could impact things down the road. And yeah, so I don't know. It's an interesting call. So, I mean, good for him for making that decision and prioritizing his team. But yeah, you're right. It could be a big problem if there's a lot of guys that make that choice.
Might cost him 26. The Olympics next year.
Well, maybe. Yeah.
If I'm Hockey Canada, it's not like he's Cale McCarr or something right now. He's a great player and he's had his, at one point it was right at the top, but he's, older, fading a little bit. If I'm Hockey Canada, I'd be like, you don't want to represent Canada here. Well, next year that might be a reason we won't select you next year.
See, this is interesting because he's been on, how many Olympic teams has he been on? 2?
Has he been on?
I thought he was at least on 1. I thought he.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh no, but maybe not because of how. Yeah, because the pros weren't in the last couple,
one,
right? So,
but I'm just trying. He might have. He was in 14.
He was in 14.
He won in 14.
So,
and he was part of the World Cup in 16.
Okay, right. So let's consider the hierarchy of representing Canada. Number 1 would be on the Olympic team.
Yeah,
correct.
Probably number 2 would be on a World Junior team.
Correct.
Probably number 3 would to be on a World Cup team whenever they have the World Cup, which is very sporadic. And probably number 4 would be on a World Championship team. Right? Because you'd sooner be in the playoffs.
Yeah, 100%.
So
I can't disagree with any of that.
So Pietrangelo's been on an Olympics and been on a World Cup.
Yeah.
So for the generation,
probably
though,
probably World Juniors. Yeah, he's with 2 World Juniors, a gold and a silver.
So I guess if we take out the World Junior and things you do as an adult, as a pro, McCarr and McDavid, for example, have not been in an Olympics. So this Four Nations face-off to them might be a bigger deal because they're actually getting to wear the Canadian colors for the first time, and then they're going to be in the Olympics next year.
World Juniors, though.
True.
But as an adult.
But I guess
in the professional career,
as an adult, like being selected at the highest level. So, but this is the problem with international hockey. Like I always say, international hockey is an oxymoron because it's not actually an international sport. It's like, there's a few countries that are good at it and can win any given time. So now, Pietrangelo is he saying, well, I'm not of the generation where I've never played in a men's tournament, as a Canadian. So if I miss the Four Nations, like what is the winner of the Four Nations face-off get? Okay, you won the Four Nations face-off. Now, once it's on, will I watch? Sure, but I just know it doesn't have the gravitas of the Olympics, that you're going to get an Olympic gold medal.
But then the player might be thinking that, but as a PA, which the players are obviously a part of, you have to be thinking long-term here, and what is this trying to create? Is this the first step to get back to the World Cups? and have those going. And to do that, you have to have, that's money for your pocket or future generations' pocket of the PA. You have to get it going. And that's the other, like, this isn't just some event the NHL's putting on. This is with the PA.
Sure.
That's the big thing for this. So, but I don't, Pietrangelo bowing out makes sense to me. I don't think McDavid could get away with that also. He was one of the first players named to it.
Unless he wants to make a statement on how things go in the real NHL with how he's treated, but
yeah, but I don't. Yeah,
he's not going to do that.
He would never
either.
do that.
No.
That's not. I mean, that suggestion last week was such bunk. But
he's the face of the league, all that. Like he'd have to get banged up, I think, to a degree. To really.
It's just it's to me, and I've said this, and Jay and I have talked about it on our show because Jay especially is not big on this tournament. Jay especially doesn't like that Brad Marchand was pre-named to the Canadian roster. It's a bit of a legacy pick there. Now, they might need someone to put someone in a chokehold at some point, so Marchand can do that.
Although him and Crosby have a great chemistry.
But it's, I guess you could say this about any sporting event, but it's such a manufactured event.
Mm-hmm.
And I realize, there's a lot of things you can criticize about the Olympics and corruption and all this kind of stuff, but it's kind of like it's still the Olympics. And it's still a larger tournament than 4 teams, just sort of for the sake of having a tournament. I can remember, and I'm sure you can, Murray, like the Canada Cup was such a big deal because you still had the Iron Curtain and the players from the Soviet Union, as it was called, and Czechoslovakia weren't in the NHL for the most part. I mean, there might be the odd guy, but generally, like that 87 Canada Cup, to me, is the pinnacle of hockey. Now, I wasn't born in 72. By 2010, it was cool, but I still thought 87 was a better tournament. I don't think there was a single Soviet Russian player that was in the NHL, but you had Makarov and Fedosov and Krutov, Larionov, like Hasek was the Czech goalie. Like this was like years before he made I think Hasek and Pasek were their 2 goalies in 87 for the Czechoslovakian team in 87. So to me, that was like a great tournament. It was before the NHL season, so it kind of got you. It was a little extra hockey, but it wasn't interrupting everything that happened. Gretzky and Lemieux were on the same team, and obviously Lemieux got the game winner. Yeah. So but it had a little more weight to it again because you didn't see these players play against each other all the time. Like how good are the Soviets? Like who's this guy on the Czech team? Like even some Finns and Swedes, right? So to me that was. But now we know all these guys. We're interrupting the NHL season, and there's always still that in the back. I think anyway, when we have the 4 nations face-off, and there's still all this in the back of everybody's mind. Well, whatever team you cheer for, I'll use the Leafs as an example. Well, what if Matthews blocks a shot and breaks his foot? Mm-hmm. What if Hellebuck stretches and tears his groin? If you're a Jets fan. Whereas in the Canada Cup, that could happen, but it's right at the start of the season. Well, this guy's out for 2 months. Well, he'll be back November 1st.
Exactly.
So that's why these sort of mid-season tournaments, to me, are a little problematic and still lack and I know I'm romanticizing when I was a teenager watching hockey, but, that's why I look at other international events and be like, I don't know if it's ever going to quite capture me like some of those did.
But it's interesting because I follow soccer more closely than other people would, and it's, how many international windows are there in a season? There's September, there's October, there's November, there's March. Is that it? There's 4 international windows during the season where the leagues stop. Their players go off to go to play with their national teams. Then they come back and they continue their season.
Right.
And there is that, like, some people, or a lot of people are now worried about, there's so much extra soccer being played that goes through the whole year that these players aren't getting rest, and there's that impact in the injuries. But somebody, Manchester United fan, somebody goes off to play for their international team, there's the risk of an injury because they're going to go play 2 or 3 games with Italy, and it can be like, oh, he's out, he's gone for it. But they stop their leagues, all the biggest leagues in the world, they stop to go deal with the international window, and it's known as the international break.
Right.
And that's where it's like, it's just fascinating that, like, in North America, like, obviously we don't see that, and it is different. It is weird.
But a lot of those, now correct me if I'm wrong, you know more about soccer than I do, but are not a lot of those matches they're being freed to go play qualification for the World Cup and for Euro?
Not all the time. No.
Okay.
So there are those now, but there used to be in the past, it used to be friendlies. They'd go just to play friendlies, and then UEFA was like, "We're tired of just friendlies. We need something better." So they created something called UEFA Nations League. So it's I would say probably half the time it's Nations League, the other half the time it's a qualifier. So the qualifying makes sense. The Nations League, it's not anything really that I think anyone cares about. That if somebody wins it, like Italy's lost in the final, but I don't think anyone in the country was stopping to make sure that they watched Italy lose to Portugal in that Nations League final or however it worked out. So half the time it's actually garbage.
Okay, fair enough. But I would still say the fact that soccer has this World Cup that pretty much every country in the world is interested in playing in. Like even if you're these small countries that lose 12-0 in the very, very first round, like at least you're in it. You're in the qualifying. Whereas hockey is different. Because let's face it, if you put together so how many teams are they expanding the World Cup to? 48?
Even going to 48.
Even if they wanted to do a 32-team World Cup like they've been doing the last few World Cups, like you'd struggle to find 32 teams. Like at Christmas time, Jay and I were looking at all the divisions.
Hockey?
Yes, all the divisions of like the World Juniors. You know, there's a Division D in World Juniors that Thailand won or something like that, but you'd never. Whereas the 32nd best team in the World Cup, while a prolific underdog, you could still have the year Iceland made the quarterfinals or whatever. So that's the thing. I get it that soccer stops their seasons to go play, but at least some of those matches are in an attempt to qualify for one of the biggest sporting events in the world. World Cup World Cup and Olympics.
World Cup, I would say, is the biggest. Summer Olympics, second biggest. That's my argument.
So Canada. So here in the NHL, we're stopping the season this year, not so Canada can play, two other really good hockey nations to try to get into the Olympics. We're stopping the season to practice for the Olympics, sort of.
Flip side
to remind people that the Olympics are next year.
Yeah. Oh, the flip side is look, the Olympics is now the thing we all love. But when the first couple Olympics happened, they weren't. I don't know if they envisioned it'd be this prestigious completely all the way. The NHL does not want to be connected with the IOC anymore. They don't want to be connected with the Olympics because they don't get the money from it all. They don't get the likeness. They can't show the image of the golden goal whenever they want because the IOC owns that and they protect the hell out of that. So they want, and now they have failed miserably on this, but they want to create their own World Cup, soccer World Cup. The soccer event isn't at the Olympics; it's its own thing.
Right.
They want to create the biggest crown jewel of hockey themselves to be theirs. To do that, you have to have your own event and create it, but you also have to be consistent at it on a consistent,
which is a
calendar.
problem. Yes,
that's the thing they need to get. So that's where I see this as this isn't this is to get people ready for the Olympics next year, but I also see this as a start to the World Cup. They want to relaunch the World Cup again and create that and build that as the crown jewel of international hockey. Now, to get there, we're probably 20, 30 years away. They have to create a World Cup. They got to do it every 4 years, and they got to be consistent on it.
Yeah.
We know exactly when it's going to be. It's now a bidding process of who's going to host it, but we know what's going to happen. You can't get rid of it. And I think then they want to one day have, so that we started this by saying Olympic hockey is number one. They want to create World Cup of hockey is number one for the hockey win.
Well, they should have it in September.
And that's when when was that one?
Oh, they did one.
The 16 one was in September with the North America and Europe. Was that not in September?
Yes, because I remember in Penticton watching games.
Yes.
Yeah, when I was there for the Oilers rookie tournament. Yeah.
But for me too, with this 4 Nations Cup, it's 4 nations. Like it's missing.
Yeah.
It's missing Russia.
And who knows if or when they're going to be back.
Right. But I mean, to watch, we're all geared up to watch Canada versus USA. Are we really geared up to watch Canada and Finland?
No.
But we'd be geared up to watch Canada against Russia. And even Germany, like Germany could probably put in a team that could be, they'd be that underdog, but, they could come up in a game and sneak out a victory with a good goaltending performance or something. Like, it's just 4 nations. It's just, that's why the summertime, when you could have all the countries participating and have have 2 divisions or whatever you're going to do, but it's just an anti.
It's more artificial than most artificial things.
Yeah, I'm gonna watch especially Canada and US Canada games. I'll watch them for sure. But the event as a whole it's just missing something. To me, it's not. Yeah.
It's replacing the All-Star game, though. That's the other part to this one this year. Is that we don't have an All-Star game, which I'm very thankful for. I'd rather watch a Four Nations than an All-Star weekend.
Oh,
I will say that straight up.
100%. Now, this is a little longer than an All-Star break normally is and whatnot. So, interesting.
But there's a thing, like, and we've talked about this too. So, Leon gets a break.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Who's upset about that if you're an Oilers fan?
Yeah. I think this is working out to be very nicely for Oilers fans.
Mm-hmm. Especially
a lot
they don't have as many
Bouchard,
players.
Hyman didn't make the roster, which is great.
Though Ekholm and Arvidsson are in it, don't forget.
You have only 3 players going. Skinner isn't going. You have that rest. I stamp, like, it all is working out nicely. McDavid just got 3 games rest.
Yeah.
And so he's getting his rest here.
And Vegas is sending, 7 guys? So
and then Leon's going to get his rest during Four Nations. It's all working out nicely for the Oilers fan this year of you want that long run to the Cup in June. Your guys are resting. You're getting load management without load management.
Yeah.
It's working out very nicely for the Edmonton Oilers. That's why I shouldn't have been upset about 3 games lost for Connor McDavid. When 3 happened, people would be like, yeah, it's long, but he's getting a week off.
Right.
It's great.
And they can win without him.
Yeah. They can win without him. And it wasn't like it was a stretch, especially. Like, it was winnable games even. Like, not that they're just a good hockey team, but they were also the opponents that you were looking at, like, outside of Washington, that first one. It was like, okay, well, it's Buffalo on Saturday. Like, you should now, a little bit of a closer game on Saturday than I think people would have liked. But they got the win. They got the 2 points. And McDavid comes back tonight. So
how about this for a topic to talk about for a couple minutes? A massive trade happened in the NHL on Friday that certainly has impact. Will impact the future of the Edmonton Oilers come playoff time if they get a matchup against Colorado or make the Stanley Cup and potentially play Carolina. That was a trade. Holy.
Well, yeah. First of all, big trade. Second of all, I think we've seen the continued neutering of the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Because sometimes these things, a lot of times in recent years now, these things are happening now or even earlier, where teams are just like, "Hey, I'm not going to wait. I know we know what we need. We know this guy's available. I'm not going to allow another team to sneak in there 3 weeks from now or whatever."
Shoot your shot, yeah.
I'm surprised Chicago got so little out of it.
It didn't make sense. Well, you lost an asset and you only got a 3rd round pick and you're eating salary.
Right.
Okay, so Taylor Hall, I mean, you guys are from Edmonton, so you're probably a little biased on Taylor Hall, but Taylor Hall is not good. He was playing on the Chicago Blackhawks 4th line.
I understand that.
He's not, you're not getting a 2nd round pick for Taylor Hall at this point. So most people were saying that Blackhawks were going to have to retain half and maybe get a 3rd for Taylor Hall was all he's worth. Okay. So if they were trading him to Carolina for Carolina's 3rd round pick, that's at the end of the 3rd round. Now we're not talking about a whole lot here. So you're retaining half on a player that's a little bit more money, but instead you get your own 3rd round draft pick back. So you're picking right at the top of the 3rd line. So 25 picks higher in the 3rd round. It is a 3rd round pick.
No, I understand that.
I mean, at the end of the day, is that trade so little for Chicago?
I just thought they would have got a prospect or something. But I read Mark Lazarus's article. He covers the Hawks, and he said they got a lot of prospects. So, yeah, they were happy to get the pick back. Rantanen is a great player. But it's when the trade happened, I checked. I didn't realize Natchez was that high, like in the top 15
He's
in
had a
scoring,
great year.
right? Now, is he going to be able to finish as often as Rantanen did? I don't know. We'll see.
3 points yesterday.
But so fair enough. But it's just the trades are fun, right, for fans and to talk about.
This was a trade,
and to see Rantanen get traded, like one of the wherever you'd put him in the league, top 10, top 20, depending on your opinion. But he's very, very good. So is Colorado? I guess the question is Colorado better? Or are they sort of lateral, but now they have a guy maybe they can keep and
does it have more long-term thinking?
Does it have more long-term? Does it help them more long-term with the cap and
the short-term concern would be how does this affect the locker room? can this infect the locker room?
Right.
You know, Bednar after the game, you could see he was a little
McKinnon too. Yeah.
losing a Rantanen as a coach sucks.
Yes.
Yeah.
McKinnon wasn't happy.
Yeah.
I will say Joe Sakic has made some big trades in the past. And there have been times we've looked at, I think it was the Matt Duchene trade maybe, where initially it was like, what are you doing type thing. Or maybe it's the O'Reilly. There was one. And then it ended up working out like completely fleeced afterwards when you're looking back.
Well, he got like 6 pieces in that trade, didn't he? Like that was
Which
massive.
one? The Duchene one?
The-
Duchene
yeah.
was a lot.
Yeah, it was crazy what he got. in that
But
deal.
so we'll see if he works out this. I just want the official, like I've seen the conflicting reports. I've seen the Rantanen says the Avs haven't talked to him. You know, his camp saying they haven't talked for about extension, was willing to take a little less. But then you got the other side saying the Avs they've been talking and they're not getting close, so they just moved on. I can't wait for the end of the season when somebody will have the definitive piece on this type thing of where was the breakdown here.
Yeah.
Why in the end did the Avs think, okay, we can't keep this guy, we can't sign this guy, and how long had they been talking? Because it's a really good player to move on from. And I think this does help the Edmonton Oilers to a degree for this season.
And I still I get what you're saying about Hall, but that's still a pretty good guy for Carolina to have wherever you're going to use him.
He played on their 4th line yesterday.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you know, still you got a guy that can skate and has some experience.
Yeah.
I just
So
see
it's-
the Hawks giving up 2 assets in a sense, and they only get a third for it.
What's the second asset?
Cap space. They retained.
Yeah, but they don't. That's
That's
irrelevant. They have so much cap space. It's unbelievable.
I know, but it's one of those things when you retain, because you have all that cap space, you get something for it. And then you're giving up a player in Hall.
Yeah.
And then so like that's where I was a little like they probably could have got something else out of that. Because if you're going to be the broker of deals, whoever could be a broker at trade deadline, like the Lightning last year got, what did they get from the Oilers for the Henrique deal? They got like a third or something. Or
I can't remember.
they got some sort of pick because they were the facilitating the money to make it work from the Ducks to the Oilers. You have the cap space. Hey, you're going to use my cap space.
Yeah,
Give me something for
So
it.
Chicago got a bump up in the 3rd round of about 25 picks. Like,
But then they don't get to
thought
trade Hall later
it was
for
all-
something. That's where I'm saying like the.
But Murray's saying Hall had almost no value.
And I'd be skeptical of that. I think if you're holding on to him closer to the deadline, you'd be able to get something for him.
a 3rd round pick. So
So you
late
get 2 third-round picks
but a 3rd round pick. No, they wouldn't have got a 3rd round pick for
retention.
I mean, but they're retaining. They were going to retain on Hall anyways, so it's no different. They're retaining an extra 1.4 million.
But
or
in this
something
deal,
like that.
you retain, you get a pick for the retention, and then you get something for Taylor Hall.
So we got a better pick for the retention than we would have for trading Hall. We got a pick right at the top of the 3rd round instead of at the bottom.
But if
of
you have
third
all the
round.
cap space in the world, you could get a third, even if it's a little bit lower. You can get a third for the cap retention, and then later you retain on Taylor Hall, and you get another third, and you get 2 thirds.
But then we would have been out of retention spots. If we would have retained on both,
they're out
we
of
would
retention spots.
No, we have one left now. If we would have retained on both, then we would have needed to get way more. But because you're only allowed 3 retention spots.
And how many? So now they're at.
They're at 2 because they're retaining on Jake McCabe from a trade.
So they only retain. So okay, but who says that they're going to need a third retention?
Because they got lots of other guys they can trade at the trade deadline. Like Alec Martinez, I think is a perfect player for the Edmonton Oilers to get.
With the Penner's Pancakes, Hawks needed it for an upcoming offer sheet. That doesn't work because the pick would be used before the offer sheets.
Right.
That's what some people I saw saying. Because the Hawks
Yeah.
got their pick back, and some people are thinking, they're loading up on their picks to offer sheet.
No.
It's for this year's draft. Offer sheets are for
Would be
next
the
year's
next
draft.
year's draft, right? Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a nothing trade for the Hawks. Like, I mean, whatever. Like, it's could we
I
have
get what
got
you're saying.
if we would have got Carolina's 2nd round pick? I mean, because it's a 3rd round pick. If we would have got Carolina's 2nd round pick, which might be 3 picks before this pick that the Blackhawks are going to get, does it sound better? And all of a sudden, people are going to grade it better for the Blackhawks? I mean, it's all that's yeah. I mean, the Blackhawks are so minor in this.
Yeah,
whole,
they're not
whole
the
thing.
team of interest. That's fair.
Yeah. But yeah, the Blackhawks are probably going to retain and trade Martinez, or potentially I don't want Chicago to trade Ryan Donato. Ryan Donato is he's a very valuable piece, and I don't like Ryan Donato only gets paid $2 million, so I don't think they would need to. They should if they are trading and retaining on Donato, you better get a first round pick for that, because Donato is a play. I would rather see Chicago not trade Donato and sign him to a 2-year extension and keep him, because you need some. They can't. Next year they're probably going to have. I mean, right now they're playing 4 defensemen that are 22 years of age and under. That's awesome. And next year they're going to keep adding more and more of their young prospects into the NHL, but you still need a few old guys. So like Ryan Donato is a guy that works his butt off every single shift. So I don't want Chicago to trade him. I want them to keep him and sign him for 2 years. But anyways, it's going to be an interesting trade deadline for as it always is, right?
I hope, but Reid's right. Like the names have been over the years been getting crossed off a lot sooner. That by the time you get to deadline day,
it's not.
There's not as many like, well, what's going to happen now? Last year we got shocked at the end with the Thomas Hertl trade. No one was seeing that one coming. That was a name that kind of, even though he was injured at the time, was a big shock to the system.
Well, no one saw this coming. Holy.
No, and now it's like, are the Hurricanes going to be able to sign this guy, or is he going to hit the market come July? Which, even speaking of trade deadline, not a lot of names. Free agency hasn't had a lot of big names for a long time. If Aranin hits, that's a big one.
Mitch Marner too could be a free agent as well. So it'd be interesting to see if Toronto can has enough cap space to get him.
I would love if he walked, just from a chaotic perspective for the city of Toronto.
Yes, that would be perfect.
Couldn't get him traded. Couldn't get it all done. He's there. They're having a good season right now. To me, it's a quiet good season in the sense that, like, I feel like if Toronto's usually in the top 5 or so in the NHL, we'd be pelted with that a lot more from national media, but we're not. And then he walks, and they lose him for nothing.
Yeah. So there's 3 Canadian teams in the top 7 in the league.
Wow.
Jets second, Oilers 4th, Leafs 7th.
So you got to think, though, right now, that if the Oilers are going to the Stanley Cup, they're going to have to play and beat Colorado. So Colorado does not have Rantanen anymore. So does that make the road for the Oilers to the Cup a little easier? Or does Natchez and the other piece that they got, he got a goal yesterday for them too. So Natchez got 3 points. The other guy got a goal for them yesterday. So I don't know. Does it make Colorado flat on this? Is Colorado a little better, or are they worse because they don't have Rantanen? That's and more is to come probably. Maybe they're going to make another move because they also got a little extra cap space.
Yeah, and I don't know. The playoffs are so unpredictable. Like, I would hesitate to say that the road to the Cup goes through Colorado. I mean, they are 4th in the division right now. They are a wild card team.
Yeah.
I mean, right now it's more likely that the Oilers would play the Avalanche in the first round than in the Western Final. If it ended right now, the Oilers would play the Flames. How good would that? How fun they
would
play the
that be?
Kings right now because Vegas jumped.
Vegas
jumped Edmonton
yesterday. Okay.
But I'm just saying, if Edmonton wound up first in the Pacific and played the better wild card team, that's when they would play Colorado.
Yeah.
And like, Jets are very, very good. Dallas is consistently good.
Yeah.
I don't know if, like, to me, Colorado, they'll probably do something else.
Yeah. They fixed their goaltending. I mean, I think they're lower in the standings because they had bad goaltending.
Yeah, they started really bad.
So they're
kind of
the 3 teams I'd have concern if I was the Oilers. Like, and concern is probably not the right word, but it's, if I could see a team knocking off the Oilers in the playoffs in the West, it'd be Colorado, just because I think they battle well against each other. I would have the Oilers as the favorite going into that. It's the Golden Knights and it's the Jets. Those are the 3 teams that I think I would look and okay, that could be a tough matchup. But I think the Oilers are good enough that everyone else they should be able to handle as it stands right now with how all teams look. So trade deadline
for several years,
pending.
I think we've all looked at the Jets roster and gone home and their performance in the regular season, and they've been a good team, but come playoff time, they've never gotten it done. So, man, sooner, like, I don't know, they gotta prove it in the playoffs before I'm going to jump on a Jets bandwagon. Maybe this is the year. I don't know, but
they're always just good enough, but not to get beat. You know, that's the way I look at the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, I don't know. They
kind of their DNA. It's like the Buffalo Bills. You get close, but you just can't get it done. The official drink of the EST Hangout, it is the Finnish long drink legend in 1952, a drink unlike any other sparkling refreshment, real liquor. Longdrink.com/Canada is where you can enter your postal code and find liquor store nearest you with the long drink in stock. Or if you're heading down to Rogers Place tonight, OEG long drink. They have a nice partnership, so you can pick up a long drink at Rogers Place.
By the way, it looks like Jeff Skinner is the scratch tonight, based on the.
Do you have the lines or lines?
Tony just tweeted them out 4 minutes ago. McDavid between Draisaitl and Hyman. Henrique, Pud, Colson, and Arvidsson. Nugent Hopkins centers Janmark and Brown. Philp centers Perry and Kapanen. Ekholm, Bouchard, Kulak, Emberson, and Regula with Stetcher. Now, Nurse is not taking the morning skate. Nor is Stuart Skinner, oddly enough. Tony says 25, 36, and 74 not on the ice. So that's Nurse, Klingberg, and Skinner. So I wonder if there's some illness there or maintenance days.
It's been going around.
Sure. I mean, I would think Nurse is going to play. Maybe Pickard will start because did Pickard? Yeah, Skinner's usually been playing 2 or 3 in a row, and then it's pretty much usually been 2 in a row. So I would think Nurse will be playing. Klingberg, I didn't expect to play. I don't think we'll see him before Thursday at the earliest. And then, maybe with Pickard not on the ice, or maybe with Skinner not on the ice, Pickard plays. I imagine, at some point this morning.
What's due date on baby number 2 for Stu? Is it?
I think it's during the Four Nations, isn't it? Didn't he say that? I think he might have said it's right around the Four Nations.
Yeah, I was just wondering if that might be going on right now. But
does it surprise you that he's putting McDavid back with Draisaitl and not just keeping Draisaitl on his own line still?
Yeah, a little bit for the first game back, but maybe he wants to see Nugent Hopkins. Maybe he wants to see Henrique, Nugent Hopkins, and Philp all down the middle and see how that works. And here's the thing: if the rest of the roster is able to produce or at least maintain zone time, why not go with the nuclear option? I mean, Jay and I were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Should the nuclear option be the default instead of we're desperate? I mean, those guys are so good together.
Yeah.
I mean, 20 years from now, we're going to be saying, can you believe we got to see those guys play together and what they could do in the offensive zone? Like, are we going to be saying, I wish they would have played together more?
No. So the issue then becomes the depth scoring. So, but Nuge just got 2 goals, and if Nuge can bring up another line and get another line scoring consistently, I think that would be helpful in the idea of keeping them together more. But if Skinner would have worked out as they maybe hoped and added some secondary scoring, I think that maybe would have helped make it more reasonable to keep them together all the time. But I mean, that's what if they're putting them together, they need another line to step up and score, consistently.
Tough for Jeff Skinner to score a goal and come out of the lineup.
Yes.
But I mean, that's sort of what he's fallen into here. But that's the interesting point. And I think when we've talked a lot about the Oilers adding wingers, especially players in the top 6, we've been saying Draisaitl needs wingers. But Jay and I had this discussion a couple of weeks ago. Is that the wrong approach? Should the approach be we need wingers for Nugent Hopkins so Draisaitl and McDavid can play together and work their magic?
Yeah.
Right?
Man, but when you have the 2 best players,
the fear I have with McDavid
world,
and Draisaitl just is that it's not. Look, it's hard to contain them, but if they get contained,
you lose, probably.
Whereas you force teams to them, okay, we've got to send one defensive pairing to go deal with McDavid. We then got to send the next pairing to Draisaitl. And does one of those players then get just the nicer matchup and an easier matchup, which helps elevate that a little bit more? That's what I like the separation of it, is that then you could only, the team only has to defend McDavid and Draisaitl separately, and you could only use so many defenders and throw certain players over the boards. Whereas they're together, if the team can figure out how to contain them in that game, it makes it a little bit more difficult for the Oilers. But then to your point, if you start that way and it's starting to be contained, the Oilers have the option then to split them up.
Yes.
as opposed to starting them split up. And if things aren't working, then you're throwing them together. And then maybe that makes things easier for the other teams. Oh, we've already been containing these guys. Now they're just on one line, even easier. We just have to focus on that one line. I don't know. I'm going to butcher his name maybe. Peter Baugh, B-A-U-G-H. He's a New York hockey writer for The Athletic. He just has this quote, chatted with Mikko Rantanen after a Canes practice on where Avs talks left off. Quote, I was willing to take a significant discount from my market value. We had some chats a couple days before, and then they traded me. That's why I didn't expect it. That I'm fascinated by.
Yeah.
What is it, and what is a significant market discount?
Yeah.
Because the market's set at what, 14?
Well, it's out there that he wanted dry money, which
but what's the significant
sense.
discount?
Right.
Does he think that's $1 million? Does he think that's $2 million? Does he think putting him at the same number as Nathan McKinnon? That would be a significant discount, I would say, from the market value. But
sure.
Again, that's a story I'm very fascinated to watch moving forward because we're now hearing two different sides.
Yeah, there's going to be two sides to the story, and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle, right?
3 stories, sides to every story. That's what they say. One side, the other side, and the truth.
The truth, exactly. So, but that was out there. They were talking, but I mean, what the insiders were saying that he was saying that he wanted dry money. Colorado was saying you're not getting more than McKinnon. He said, "F you, I want dry money." So they traded him. I mean, that sounds pretty reasonable to me. Like that, it would make some pretty good sense. But if he's saying that's not the case, then I don't know.
Jerry Jones is speaking right now.
I know. I'm getting texts.
Well, what's he talking about?
Well, they're doing their presser right in front
New
of the
stadium.
Right in front of the new coach. Quote: "This is the biggest risk I could take, but trust me, I know what I'm doing, and you shouldn't doubt me."
That's great.
Like right in front of the new coach. This is the biggest risk I could take hiring this guy. But I mean, like I was saying earlier, he thinks he's the smartest man in the room. So you should trust me. Like you should not doubt me. Well, man, like what about you, Jerry Jones? Have you done recently that people shouldn't doubt you?
Yeah, that's always that. Even in on a winning franchise, when somebody says that, it's not always the best way to put it. I mean, Kevin Lowe got roasted for his comment. I think we know a little.
I know a thing or two about winning.
You know, especially given how poorly the team was doing at the time. But I think even if on a winning franchise, so if you say that and your franchise is losing, you sound out of touch. And then if you say that on a winning franchise, I still think you could sound arrogant. If you're like, hey, I know what I'm doing. It's like, well, okay, we maybe get the benefit of the doubt, but you know, if something's being questioned, it's being questioned. I remember this is not exactly the same, but it was an awkward press conference moment. So I can't remember if they changed their name or not, but when I lived in Lloyd, you know, the junior A team they were Blazers and they were Bobcats, but you know, they weren't very good while I was there. The first couple of years they were okay, and then they were quite, you know, second last, third last in the North Division. Yeah. So they went through some coaches. So they'd hired a coach, and at this point they must have been the Bobcats because they were sort of community owned, and then they sort of had an owner, but really they still were community owned. But this guy that owned I can't remember the company. It was like a construction type company, you know, basically took on all the debt for the team. So he and his colleagues were basically in charge. So they hired a coach. So there was a news conference. So, I mean, I'm asking they did a podium thing, but really it was me asking all the questions. So I asked about the process so it's the owner and the new coach at the table. And the owner said, well, you know, our first choice was this other guy, and he turned us down. And I knew that because he was the guy that was in Weyburn for a long time. I can't remember his name, but he'd been the Weyburn Red Wings coach forever. So they went after him. And then, you know, the guy who did kind of PR media relations for the Bobcats came up to me after and was like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. No. Like, he goes like, everybody knew it, but why?
He say it.
But I mean, he wasn't doing it to be a jerk. I mean, he wasn't a trained speaker. Right. You know, he was kind of a community guy that took on the hockey team, but it was kind of a bit of a cringy moment.
Yeah.
You know?
Ouch. Or like out of the Edmonton Eskimos at the time, winning isn't everything.
Or it's
Oh yeah, who said that?
that was
Len
Len
Rhodes.
Rhodes for Ed Hervey.
Right.
fired.
Oh right, yeah.
The-
And you understand
he
what
has
he's
two of them.
saying, but it's a
It's
Yes.
not a good look.
it's the,
Yeah,
to
it's-
give that sound bite is not.
Well, it's the same when he
Yeah.
fired Eric Tillman. It was for no specific reason. And I was at that press conference, and I remember Terry Jones tried giving him
Yeah.
so many outs
And
to
he
just.
ne-
He's
he
like,
never took
so
it.
what? So you're telling me you fired him for no reason? He's like, no specific reason. And Terry like threw a few more. He's
Right.
like, so you went to the board, and you didn't give him a reason to why you fired him. No specific reason. Like, come on, like. There was a lot to choose from. There was a number. You
Yeah,
just had to
that's
say
that's
one.
the thing. Like again,
With Eric Tillman, you just
I
had to
know.
say one of them,
And,
and
like-
he just kept going with the no specific reason.
Right.
And I was like,
And-
okay,
and
we're ripping
lo-
you for this now.
Right. And logically, if you take 5 seconds to think about it, you know what he means. But sports fans in that situation, like even if he would have said, look, I can't disclose what happened.
Yeah.
You know, it's confidential. I realize people want blood or want me to humiliate this person.
Yeah.
I'm not going to
gonna
do
do
that.
that. Yeah.
I'm not. So
Just
that,
be
you know,
upfront
people
like
would have
that,
been mad
yeah.
at that too. But he said, look,
At least he's up front.
or he could have
Yeah.
just said, look at the record of the team. We want to win, and we aren't.
I want to go.
winning isn't
I want to go to
everything.
new direction.
If there's other stuff behind the scenes,
Sure.
I'm not going to.
We had a different view of how the direction of this franchise is going to
right,
go,
which is
So I
still
wanted to go there.
somewhat vague.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's better than saying
There's no. I fired him for no reason.
right because really what he meant to say was
There's no number one reason.
There are no reasons that I'm comfortable disclosing publicly for the sake of the franchise and the sake of Eric's future or
Yeah.
whatever. You know,
Yeah.
but
Or there was when Tim Murray lost the draft lottery to the Oilers, and how angry he was. He was visibly upset.
the Buffalo guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was one where it was like, you're still getting Jack Eichel, dude. Like, this isn't starting off your relationship right with Jack Eichel with how pissed you are that you're getting Jack Eichel,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. That
I
forgot.
get you're upset that you didn't get McDavid when the
Yes.
cameras come in front of you. Don't look so upset because you will be taking someone that now you're reluctantly taking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how'd that work out in Buffalo? What?
Yeah, they're in a tough spot, eh? Now, hey, I'm not. If the Oilers don't win the McDavid draft lottery, who knows?
They could be in the same
We could
spot.
be at 18 years out of the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or whatever. Buffalo's at 14. But like I was looking at their, because we get besides looking at the stats, like we get a nice roster sheet before every game with the lineups as they were in
Yeah.
warm up, and I'm like, oh yeah, that guy. Oh yeah, that guy. He was like a first round pick. Oh yeah, he's a second round pick. Oh yeah, that guy. And as we saw, they can play with some tempo. I mean, they dictated most of the game, but it's just not translating into
Yeah. They've gone-
wins.
Gone through a number of coaches, and so it's not coaches. I mean, they have some talented players there. It's just so it's hard to put your finger on what the issue is there, and
Yeah, I agree.
it speaks
they-
to the rebuilding is. It's an interesting thing, and my Hawks are going through it, and San Jose, Anaheim's kind of turning a little corner right now. But I mean, it's not rebuilds aren't linear. There's ups and downs and twists and turns. But for them, it's never gotten. They haven't even made the playoffs with all these high draft picks.
I don't even know how many years they've been close.
Yeah.
I mean, because in the Oilers' 10 years, there were 3 years I think they were in 6 or 8 points. But then the other years they were obviously in the bottom 3, and obviously the bottom a couple of times.
They're fourth from the bottom right now.
Buffalo, well, yeah, they were 30th on Saturday going into that game.
Okay, yes,
Yeah.
third from the bottom then.
So that would have been, I don't know what changed or if something changed. Well, they couldn't have gone up by not playing. But But yeah, that's the thing. They're not just, we're probably going to miss again. They're last in the East. They'd have to pass all the other non-playoff
I think the
teams
first
to get
year
in.
they missed the playoffs, which is 2011-12, would be the closest that they've been. Because
So
according to the division, they were third in that division.
Okay.
But then after that, it's been like fifth. So, and then that was back with the Northeast division. So we would have been out of five. Then it was
teams,
eighth, eighth, seventh, eighth, sixth, eighth, fifth, sixth.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not saying that to mock Buffalo because the Oilers
No.
have been there. And again, I fully believe if they don't win the McDavid draft lottery, who knows?
Yeah.
Like a lot could have happened over the last 8 or 9 years, but that's got to be because you want hope as a fan. I mean, it's like a circle back to my dad. You're not going to win every year,
Yeah.
but
You missed the
you
playoffs
like
in
to
game
be
80. You have the next year of, hey, we were that close.
Yeah, and
Maybe
fans
next
are
year.
excited right down to the end as opposed to, Buffalo's not going to make the playoffs.
No.
Like, you're not going to pass the
They might.
at that point. Like, there's a point where obviously in the NHL, the point total matters, but it's also how many teams do you have to pass?
Yes, exactly,
like with the loser point, you're not going to pass
Those 4 points.
9 teams and sneak into 8th.
And so this is appearing to be a 4-player draft. So if they stay right where they are, they probably get either Misa or Martone, which, those are really good pieces to add into their
Or it's
mix.
a time to trade that.
Well,
Trade a top pick and go get some sort of asset immediately.
That's one of the biggest
Yeah,
what ifs
interesting.
with the Oilers too, is if they traded the Yakupov pick,
yeah.
and even moved down. What have you got?
You
Trouba
drop-
or Riley or something like
you
that?
dropped to 11, 12, 13 at that time.
That
or
was a
something.
bad. If you go look at that first round, that was a bad.
Well, I think Riley's
draft.
the best player out of that. Riley and Trouba, aren't they the best players?
Well, the first few picks, they didn't hit. The EST Hangout, we're almost done up here. It's presented by Sentinel Storage, Canada Storage experts, more than 2 decades of helping Canadians through life's transitions. 75% off 12 weeks, 5x5 units. That offer ends on Friday. Check them out, sentinel.ca.
Yakupov, Murray, Galchenyuk, Reinhart, Riley, Lindholm, who's a pretty good player.
Yeah.
Dumba, Derek Pouliot, Trouba, Slater Cuckoo, who was an Oiler, went 10th. So that's the top 10 now. But we got to mention the guy who went 11th because it's Philip Forsberg.
Oh, yeah, he's pretty good.
Tom Wilson
Forsberg, part
went
of a great
16th.
trade.
Hurdle went 17th.
So there's more guys there than I
Vasilevsky
thought.
went 19th. Now, nobody's taking the goalie first overall
No.
then, but in a redraft,
In a redraft, absolutely.
If he's not 1, he's
Yeah,
probably
but
2,
in the
right?
top 5, I mean, that like top 5, there's nothing there. Galchenyuk was okay.
Like Riley's the best of the top 5 by a wide margin.
Yeah.
Now looking back on it,
he's good, but he's not a superstar by any stretch of the imagination.
We've got the lock shop coming up in just a few minutes. We got the Oil Stream Dusty live on location in Beaumont at the Boston Pizzas with Tommy. We got EST Afternoons. We got the Reid Wilkins Show with Jay Milne. GCLD's Oil Stream pre and post game shows. Pre-game show tonight, 6:30. Get you set for Oilers and Kraken. Obviously, more preview on that. I know you're probably going to be working on it. Do you have anything else you could plug right off the bat?
Yeah, we'll preview the game.
Jay will talk about his Commanders.
wrap up Commanders. If we have time, I read an interesting article in The Athletic over the weekend about how it's becoming increasingly uncommon for teams not to go out and get drunk together in the NHL.
I saw
Play
that.
You see
games. And what was the other thing?
it's,
And getting
it's some of
edible
the
drinks.
older players, and there's more cannabis use.
edible
Yeah.
marijuana and video
Yeah.
games. I read that
Well,
article.
there was
too.
a bunch of players didn't want. Now Stetcher's quoted in it, which is interesting. And if you forget, he's kind of an older
Yeah.
player now. But some of the older players who didn't want to be quoted were lamenting. They're not saying this should happen every night, but the value of going out and getting banged up 2 or 3 times a
Yeah.
year together, and
Yeah.
even the guy even said having a bitch session. Or if you loosen up a bit after a game, it's easier to say, okay, guys, why were we so bad tonight?
Yeah.
Like, who's going to... but I love that one quote. The guy said he turned around to talk to a teammate or something, and he's got the VR goggles on the airplane. Playing a game. He's like, okay, I guess we're not chatting tonight.
That is the way this world is going. I mean, gaming. Look at you guys. You guys are out there gaming
But we
all
can
the
talk.
time,
But
right?
we talk.
So,
Ours is quite
you talk
social,
to, eh?
though.
That's the Reid Wilkins Show with Jay Milne, 3 to 6. Up next, like I said, though, it will be the lock shop. Reid, thanks for coming in earlier today. Greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Murray, good seeing you. As
Yeah,
always, on behalf of
absolutely.
Reid, Murray, and Brendan, the intern behind the camera that you can't see. I'm Matt. Thanks for tuning into the EST Hangout, presented by Sentinel Storage. Lock shop in just a few minutes right here in Edmonton Sports Talk, your clear choice for Edmonton Sports. Don't go anywhere, and thanks for tuning into the Hangout.
Let's go. There you go, right in front of the camera.
First time guest, long time listener, fan of the original draft commissioner.
Welcome to the EST Hangout, presented by White Claw Hard Seltzer. The difference is clear. Matt Iwanyk, Tom Zola with here, joining us today.